Hello and welcome to a new season of Transcontinental Overload. I'm Stephanie, your host, and I'm so excited to introduce you to a new group of guests and a whole new topic. Well, not completely new, obviously. We're still talking about expat stories, but this is Transcontinental Overload, the couples edition. There is something very special about cross-cultural relationships. Of course, sometimes you don't even have to leave your own country to find someone with a very different background to yours. Maybe you're a northerner and the other person is from the south and consequently has different characteristics. Or maybe you practice different religions. Maybe just your upbringing was very different. But in cross-cultural relationships, there are so many more elements. And we're talking about more than just those kind of differences. I've always been fascinated by relationships that involve people from different countries. Of course I am, since I'm in one of those relationships myself. My husband is English and we've been together for over 20 years now. You might think, well, England and Germany aren't miles apart, literally and metaphorically. We're both from Western European countries, kind of the same age. Our family backgrounds aren't that different. So that means we've grown up with a lot of similar influences. But there are a ton of differences, different cultural references, of course, different languages. I spoke English when we met. I was studying English in England, so that wasn't a big issue for us, but it still had its challenges. And a lot of those challenges actually came up only once we had children. So that happens a lot. Issues that you never thought of before become a thing, and all of a sudden. And there are a lot of situations where you have to reevaluate your approach. You have to navigate very carefully. And I can't even imagine what happens in relationships where you don't speak each other's language. There are so many issues to discuss. And you don't have to have children to have issues. Sometimes one partner has to leave their career, their job, in order to be where the other person is. And what happens if your family and friends don't approve? Your family rejects your partner, or your partner's side of the family or friends don't approve of you. Of course, location is a huge topic too. Long-distance relationships rarely work in the long term, and that means, of course, that one of you has to move if you want to live together. Or maybe both of you decide to move to a third country, and then you end up having to deal with 3 different influences. And let me tell you, that's a whole new challenge. Anyway, as I said, this is an endlessly fascinating topic for me, and I could talk about it for absolute hours, which I won't do because you need to hear my guests' stories. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my first guest of this season, Carol from Scotland, who fell head over heels in love with a local man while on holiday in Egypt. They now live in Cairo and run a business together. Let's hear Carol's story. Welcome, Carol. I'm so excited to have you here today, kicking off my new season, focusing on cross-cultural relationships. You just mentioned that you've just come back from Scotland and you're back in Cairo. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your expat story in a nutshell?
Okay, so I am Scottish, although I did live in England for a very long time. So, but I'm back sort of base. My British base is now Scotland again. Yes, I had a very conventional life, really. Back in the UK, I worked for a bank. I was married and had a house and a car and all that kind of stuff. And there was just something not quite right, really. And then I went on holiday with my sister and her husband and my niece to Egypt, and we started off in Cairo. And this was to give my niece, who just learned to dive, to give her the chance to dive
Oh, yes.
in somewhere warm, basically. Yes. So we started in Cairo. We flew to Cairo. And
when was this?
that was 2014.
Okay.
Or was it 2015? 2014, yes, 2014. And we flew to Cairo, and we arrived in Cairo with no transport booked in the middle of the night, as you tend to do for some reason. Flights seem to arrive in the middle of the night. And a guy said, I can get you transport if I can just have 5 minutes of your time. So we did. We got to the hotel, and he said, I can sell you this trip tomorrow to the pyramid, the standard Cairo trip. And it was a really good price. And I said, yes, okay. And then during the course of our tour that day, which was really good, we must have said something to the guide about that we were in in Egypt for longer. We were going to Hurghada to dive and whatnot. And so this guy rang me up and said, I'm actually the tour business owner, and I just wondered if I could help you with organising your tours in Hurghada and your diving. And I went, well, actually, yeah, that'd be great, because I've got absolutely nothing booked apart from the accommodation, which with hindsight wasn't like me at all. And so he said, I'll come along to your hotel and we can meet and have a coffee and whatnot. And I said, yeah, okay. And that was him. And that's the person who became my husband. And my sister said, my sister knows me probably better than anybody. And she said, I knew when I saw the two of you together. I didn't know at this point, but she said, I knew that there was something there. So
that's amazing. But
that's how we met.
Yeah, sisters and, good friends. I think sometimes you can pick up on something that's under the surface.
Yes, that's probably things people themselves don't see. Yes. Yeah. So we went to Hurghada and had a fantastic time. We kept in touch, and then we kept in touch when I moved back to the UK as well. And I went back to that was in I think the October, and I went back to Egypt a few weeks later just to see if it was just a silly holiday thingy, or whether it was real, or whether there was something that could be real there. And I spent a week there and decided it was real.
Quite soon.
Yes, it was. It was only a few weeks.
Oh, my
goodness. And then I came back to the UK and decided that I wanted to be with her, and I was going to move to Egypt. Yes, it happened very quickly. Yeah, with hindsight. Yes. Yeah. So I did. I packed up. I resigned from my job. I'm going to make this sound very matter of fact, but it obviously wasn't. I divorced my husband. We split the house. Yes.
Wow,
we did all that.
That's movie material, really, if you think about it.
Oh God, yeah. I should think about who should play me in a movie, shouldn't I? Yeah. Yes.
That's so. But yeah. Wow. Okay. So that was a real. You just knew. Was it just like really just gut feeling? I'm just.
Yes.
Temporarily switching
and
off
I should
my
probably add,
sensible brain.
Yes. Yeah. And which is firstly incredibly unlike me. And people have said, how did you decide? When did you make the decision? But I didn't. The decision made itself. It was quite weird. When I look back, I don't actively recall making the decision. It just made itself. And I just knew. And I never believed in love at first sight. I didn't. I mean, I was 49 at that point, and I was like, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certainly it does exist in some form, I have to say. Definitely. So that's how it started.
That's amazing. So, well, that's 7 years.
It'll be 7 years this year since we met. Yes,
okay.
It will. Yes.
And so was it, I mean, obviously there's two people involved. So was it the same for him? Do you think he was...
Yes. He certainly says that, obviously. That he, and certainly I met his son, his eldest son, so my stepson. He and I were very close right from the beginning, actually. And he certain things that his dad did and said at the time clearly really shocked him. And for example, and that made me realize that it probably was not. It was the same for him as it was for me. Yes. So, and he still says that. He still says it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
What kind of thing did he say that his son was?
Well, one thing was my husband's mother died
Mhm.
when he was 1.5. He was extremely young when his mother died. And he said, when you, because I can, further down the line, I converted to Islam to make it easier to get married. And he said, you need a Muslim name, and I want you to take my mother's name, my mother's first name. And my stepson, he said this when my stepson was like, oh my God, yeah, and he was looking at his dad like, oh my God, this woman really does mean something to you. So that was
okay.
Nice.
So he was married before, and
yes,
and
yes,
then okay,
he was married before.
All right. Wow, that is quite the story.
Yes. Well, there's a bit before that as well, actually, which probably is worth mentioning because it's quite amazing, really, with hindsight, is that in around 1910, my great aunt, my grandmother's aunt, my mum's great aunt, moved to Egypt to teach English all those years ago, and she brought back with her some watercolor paintings of Egypt, which from a very small child I loved. They were in my grandmother's house. And when my grandmother died, my mum and my Auntie Mary gave me these paintings. So I've always had this real love of Egypt. And in fact, my husband says you were in love with Egypt before you were in love with me, and which is probably true.
So had you been to Egypt before that, Hurghada?
Yes, trip? I had. Only twice. I went once on a diving trip to Hurghada, and once to Cairo on business, bizarrely, believe it or not. So yeah, so I'd been before to Egypt, yeah, which was probably, so this trip where I met him was my third trip. Yeah. So.
But I honestly, I strongly, and I'm getting goosebumps now, because I really believe that there is something, and I've just heard so many stories from people who have a connection to a country, and they don't know where it's coming from. And I really feel, and this might sound a bit woo-woo to a lot of people, but that there is something that gets passed down in the DNA. I have family in this country, in the US, that emigrated in the 1800s and then even in the mid 1900s too, and there's all sorts of connections, and that sense of adventure and wanting to be abroad and experiencing and learning languages. My grandma was an interpreter for French, and
oh wow,
so that is something I really believe is just in my DNA.
Yes,
so I
agree.
That's kind of, where's that coming from? And I love that. So that's
I loved it, the whole idea of the Middle East, and not just Egypt, but I remember being just massively excited when my first trip to Egypt was arranged, and I've been other countries in the Middle East as well, but my first love was always Egypt, and I just loved it.
I guess also that helps a lot in a cross-cultural relationship when you.
Yes.
The question obviously is where do we want to live? We want to be together, but where do we want to live? So it sounds like in your case it was.
We didn't have, we couldn't, even if, regardless of my love or otherwise for Egypt, we didn't have any choice in that if we wanted to be together because of his children.
Yeah.
And so he needed to, and also the difficulties of an Egyptian getting a visa to live in the UK is not easy, as you're probably understand, your husband being British. So there was no choice. If we wanted to be together, it had to be me who moved. Yes. Yeah. Which I knew pretty much straight away. So so that's how that decision was made. And I was fine with it. I didn't feel resentful or anything like that, because I knew he had to. I mean, I'd be highly suspicious of a man who was prepared to move 4,000 miles away from his children, to be honest. So I was fine with that.
Okay. And you didn't have children of your own?
No, I have no children of my own. No.
So then, I mean, there's so many complications when it comes to a situation like that. But it sounds like like you said, the decision was kind of just happened, wasn't consciously made. But you said you converted to Islam in order to make getting married easy.
I did.
When was that decision made, and how?
That was, now I should say that was that's very much was a I am very I apologize to anybody who's listening to whom this offends, but I'm very much a paper Muslim. I was a paper Christian before that, and now I'm a paper Muslim. And it just I fairly early on, because in Egypt actually Muslims and Christians can't marry, and it's usually almost entirely the Christian who converts to, because there's 15% of the population of Egypt are Coptic Christians, and they can't marry a Muslim; they have to convert to Islam. So I didn't, because I'm a foreign Christian. It's different, but it did make it just substantially easier just to convert. Yeah. So that was fairly early on. That was before I moved. So we met in the October, and I moved over the following July or 1st of August it was, but I converted at some point on one of my visits. So sorry.
And what was that like? Oh yeah, my two are still fighting behind me. So
of course,
I'm just waiting for one to fly by here on the screen.
I'll look forward to it. Yes. So it's easy. Converting to Islam is easy. You go.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yes, you go to. In fact, you don't even need to do this. There's a certain form of words that you have to say, which then you're then a Muslim. But for me to do it, obviously, I needed it on paper. So I went to the Al Azhar Mosque, which is a very, very old mosque in Cairo, and said, then they have to be said in Arabic, which at that point I knew very little of. And so I went, and the imam was very good. He said the words, and he said, "See these words after me," and I said them, and that was that, basically.
Amazing.
So and I was a Muslim, and that was the only time so far I've ever worn a hijab, I might add as well, was when I went to the mosque for that. So.
Again, I guess it does help to not be more than a paper Christian, or when it comes to converting to another religion. I could imagine that might be an issue for a lot of people who are religious.
And it's a problem for a lot of people, because my husband, for example, he knows this intellectually, but he doesn't get it emotionally, because he's very religious, and he thinks of me as a Christian, and I was brought up in the Christian faith, so I come from the Christian community. But I don't tell many people many Egyptians, because they don't really grasp the whole concept of not having a religion. So that's one of the challenges, actually. But with my husband, he understands it, but not on an emotional level. So.
But it sounds like that's not a big issue in your relationship.
No, it's not. No. Religion can, well, actually, no, I was going to say religion can be, but actually it's not so much religion as culture, which I'm sure we'll be coming on to. Yeah.
So you're saying, so you don't really wear the hijab?
No.
And
no, I wouldn't.
And he's okay with that, and
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, he has. We'll probably come on to this a bit as well, but he has no choice but to be okay with it, because it was a non-negotiable. And he did say really early on, "Oh, but it's so nice if you wore hijab," and I was like, "Would it?"
Yeah.
Don't get your hopes up, buddy. Yes.
So, I love that. That's like, that's a bit of Scottish feistiness coming through there.
Yes.
It's like, that's who you married.
Yeah, yes. I love it. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you got married in Egypt?
We got married in Egypt, yes. But it took a long time, because it was complicated, because if you're divorced in Egypt, you have to wait at least 3 months before you can get married again. So we had to wait for that, and I had to get an affidavit to prove that I was free to marry. Back in the UK, I got that, and then you have to go through the British Embassy and the Egyptian Embassy in the UK, and oh goodness me, it's you wouldn't come here and get married quickly, that's for sure. But we did eventually. It took. I moved here in the August, and it was the following May that we actually, and it was very unromantic, because we went to the court, and they said, "Yes, you're married." Stamp. There you go. Bye. So that was it.
And who came to your wedding? Did you have family?
The court, nobody. We didn't, because that was just for what's the word? A formal process. That's all.
Yeah,
So
civil,
we actually held civil
marriage.
It's a civil marriage. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we actually held. It took us a while for largely financial reasons because of something else that happened. But we held a party, a really big party for everybody here in Cairo, and most of my family and lots of my friends came, and all of our joint Egyptian friends and whatnot all came as well. So, which was fantastic. It was such a great night. So that was good. It was nice to have a party because after having the extremely unromantic court thing, it was really nice to.
Yes, and having gone through all those steps and legalities, I imagine it's just you just want to, celebrate with people who mean something to you.
Yes, exactly. And we did, not vows so much, but we said things to each other. And my sister sang. My sister is a singer. She sang, and we had cake with the friends. Gave us the cakes for a gift, and they had little Egypt and Scotland flags on them, and it was really lovely.
Oh, lovely! Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the wedding, because I imagine that what did your family, what did they say, your family and friends, when this whole thing kicked off? Because I could imagine that you said you were very kind of normal, non-eventful before.
Conventional.
That, very conventional. Yes. So people were probably somewhat taken aback, I imagine.
They were horrified. The only person who wasn't horrified was my sister, and that's because she'd met him and she knew.
She knew, yeah.
Yes, and she was the one, she helped me probably more than anybody to bring my mum and dad especially round to the idea. But it was very painful and it took a very long time. And I frequently thought, I genuinely don't know if I'm doing the right thing, with this, because it's been so traumatic for my parents especially, I have to admit. And of course I was very lucky actually with my ex-husband, in that my parents loved him. They really did, and they were very upset for him, understandably. But he and I are still friends. We always were. We were always very good friends. So that was lovely, and that was good for them. That they still see him. My dad died last year, and my ex-husband came to his funeral. For example. So that was lovely.
Yeah.
And my closest friend, she absolutely could not deal with it at all. That was one of them. I knew my family were going to be very
needed some convincing.
Yes, yeah. But my closest friend, I completely misjudged that, and I thought she would be happy for me, and I think at heart she was.
Yeah.
But she just could not get over she was in a number of people said this to me, he just wants a visa, he's just after your money, he just wants to come to the UK. It's all terrible. He's got 16 wives, we got to the stage where she said, I'm just so worried he's going to lock you up and take your passport, and we're never going to see you again. And oh gosh,
I can imagine, because also the media and stories that were,
the media really doesn't
movies
help.
have been made about things like that.
Yeah.
But still, that must have been really hard to.
It was, and
have that rift.
And the other problem with her is that Egypt, she's quite risk averse, shall we say, and Egypt is in her category of countries that she will never ever visit. In fact, the whole continent of Africa, she will never visit. So, and I kind of knew that, but had forgotten, because it'd never been an issue before, obviously. And she said, I will never visit you, and that was really devastating. Actually, I've got over it now, and our relationship actually is just as strong as it ever was. But it took a long time. Yeah. A really, really long time to get it back to, and she's still my closest friend, so thank goodness.
Oh, that's amazing.
We both were. And then once she realized, that all her fears, that I was going to disappear without a trace and end up in a harem with no passport, or he was going to steal my money, or whatever, that none of that was true. She gradually got more okay about it all. So.
But has she visited?
But it was difficult. No.
So she didn't.
I don't think she will.
Didn't come to the.
Although she didn't come. But she has. We did have a slight breakthrough just recently where she said she's thinking about it. So that is a step forward. So maybe she will eventually.
I think, sometimes, some people are just very cautious in general, just as a personality trait, if you want. And I could imagine that it's just when you've known someone for a long time and then they do something that's so out of character. I couldn't imagine that it's just for some people it's just one step too far and they just take a bit longer.
Yeah, I think because she knew the yes, I think it was I think I misjudged it, because I thought that because she knew the issues I'd had in my marriage, that she would understand, but I just think it was just a massive step too far for her. So understandably, like you say.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that you've kind of managed to patch it up somewhat.
Well, we'd been friends at that point. We've been friends for 25 years.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of what's the word? A lot of reason, motivation to get past this.
Yeah.
And we did. So I'm very happy about it.
So you see her when you go back to the UK?
Yeah, pre-COVID, yes. Yeah. So I haven't. Yes. Apart from that, yes, I see her. I tried to see her every time I was back in the UK, and we talk every day as well, either by WhatsApp or by phone.
That's lovely. Yeah. Still, it's just there's so much. I get so much joy from friends and family visiting me, coming to stay and see where my life is. That it must be really hard to, because you want to kind of show her, and it's like, this is me in my new life,
and this is my life. Yes, absolutely. But I've always had a bit of a I imagine a lot more people want to visit you in your location than me in mine, because there are perceptions about Egypt, which is one of my problems.
Texas, I have friends who've said, "Oh, I'm not interested in coming where to
really."
Yes, it has happened. It was different when we were in California, I have to say.
Yes, I can imagine. Yes, I can imagine.
So, well, it's each to their own.
My closest friends in Egypt moved out of Egypt because they were here for work, and they moved out of Egypt to Spain. And having had hardly any visitors in Egypt, they were inundated with visitors in Spain. So yes.
So let's talk about his family. So how was that? So you said his mum died when he was very young.
Yes, both his parents are dead. Yes, because his father died when he was 29 as well. He's also, the other thing about him, not only is he Egyptian, he's what we call Saidi, which means from Upper Egypt as well. I mean, he was born in Cairo, but his family were from Upper Egypt. And Upper Egyptians can be very traditional, shall we say. And one of the traditional things is they have big families. So he's one of 8, my husband. So he had 4 older sisters, and 3 older sisters, I should say, and then there was him, and then his mum died, and then his father remarried, and he's got 2 more brothers and 2 more sisters after that as well. So he has a big, and because he is the eldest son, and he was the eldest son of an eldest son, again, very traditionally, he's head of the family, especially Saidi families, and the family is huge. Now, this is one of the things that I utterly failed to anticipate.
Yeah, well, it's culturally, and you and I are from similar cultural kind of, it's especially in terms of family backgrounds. So I can, I can't even imagine.
I mean, his sisters, his younger sisters especially, will ring him in the middle of the night, and he always answers, I might add, just to complain about their husbands, and. And so but that's his job. He's head of the family, so everybody can call him whenever they like and moan about anything. And he often has to go off and resolve disputes between cousins, and it's the whole family. So it's and he really, again, this is something I completely failed to anticipate, is that he really feels this burden. He takes this responsibility very, very seriously. So. That I know it really gets on his nerves, but at times, but he still does it because that's his job. He's the eldest son, therefore he's the eldest, he's the head of the family.
So is that one of the things that, like you said, you didn't anticipate, that you've kind of come to accept and
absolutely
embrace?
Come to terms with that. And the funny thing about it is that, especially with these younger sisters, I know when it's them on the phone, even though they're speaking Arabic and my Arabic is still pretty rudimentary, it can just tell by the way he's talking, and he's sitting like with his eyes rolling, and I'm thinking, this is one of his sisters. I can probably predict which sister as well. So.
Very good.
But,
so how do you get on with them? How were they open to you joining the family?
I don't think I've never met any of his brothers and sisters. Oh, sorry, I have. I've met one of his brothers. They all know about me, but they're mostly, I mean, he's worked in the tourist sector since he was in his early 20s. And as a result, his English he's fluent, although his grammar, he's fluent in terms of conversation, but because he taught himself, his grammar is not great, but he's totally understandable. But most of his family don't speak much English. So but they all know about it. They're all happy about it. For him, especially his older sisters, are all fine with it all. So, and his eldest son, like I say, I have a really good relationship with him, and his youngest son as well. His two daughters, he has two daughters sort of in between his two sons, and they're a bit more wary, I would say, but that's probably fairly Egyptian, I would say. But certainly I was never hidden, if you see what I mean, or anything like that. So they all knew.
Yeah. But you're not especially, close to, or feel like you're like completely in the middle of the whole family.
No, not at all. And I know that's and I think that's largely because both his parents are dead, because I have another friend, although she did meet, and also because I met him when I was much older. He wasn't my first marriage, and he wasn't mine, and I wasn't his first marriage. But I have a friend who met her Egyptian husband when she was here on holiday in her 20s, and she's totally involved with all of his families and has all the, and I think in-law problems are the same regardless of which country you're in, quite honestly, as far as I can tell. But so I don't have any of those, and I think it's genuinely because I was much older when I met him than my friend who
and I guess he
already, in-laws.
He already had children, so it wasn't like you were starting a family. And because having children, that adds a whole other dimension to a cross-cultural
absolutely, it does.
Marriage with both in-laws wading in terms of what to do and how to bring them up.
And I think the country that you live in then becomes much more critical, because whether you like or not, they will then absorb the traditions and cultures of that country from the family and from the environment. So it becomes a much more important decision.
And I can imagine that, like, family influence, especially if you are living in your partner's country. So it's
well, Egypt. One of the things I was thinking about after we first talked was the differences between Egypt and the UK. And one of the massive ones, and you'll know this as well because you'll be more like mine, and as is America, is Egypt is a very collectivist culture, and our countries are very individualist cultures, and so therefore the family, the community is everything. So if you join the family as a young wife, it would be practically impossible to avoid. So, and I think it does. Intercultural relationships like that in this country can be very problematic.
I can imagine. There's a lot of, and then you have the religion and all that. So there's a lot of issues to overcome, I suppose.
There are.
So, obviously, so you moved to Egypt, but so has your husband been to the UK with you?
No, he hasn't, largely because we had considerable financial difficulty. To begin with, it was too soon for my family to meet him. And then we had severe financial difficulties because the tourist industry went completely off a cliff face for various reasons. And so that we had financial issues, and it was just too hard to get a visa. but we're planning now. So my mum obviously has met him now, obviously, because she came to the wedding, and my sister's met him several times. And my mum was talking about coming again, which is great. But it just really pains me that he never met my dad. So, and I wish I'd tried harder to get him across there.
But hindsight's
a wonderful thing. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Life just got in the way.
Absolutely. And I think, this past year, obviously with a pandemic as well, and all those times when it's like, well, should we go? Should we not? And you just never know.
No, you don't.
I can imagine for you, it would be really amazing to show him the country
he's desperate to see it. He's never been to Britain. He's been to, one of the funny things was we were talking, this was quite an animated discussion, I might add, about different cultures. And he's been to Scandinavia. So he's been to Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. And this is a long time ago, but it was to try and get tour business, basically. Yeah. And I said, and what did you think about them? What did it like? And he hated Norway. And I said, why did you hate Norway? And he said, it was cold and it was dark and everybody just stayed in their houses all the time. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, Britain is a hell of a lot more like Norway than it is like Egypt. And he was like, oh my God. And I said, well, this is what you need to understand, basically.
And especially Scotland. Scotland in
exactly.
winter, I guess.
And Scotland and Norway in winter are really probably remarkably similar. Yes. But he gets that, he grasps that a lot more now, I think, than he did then. But I think that one thing that people don't take account of a lot of the time with culture is the impact that the climate has on how people act, to be honest. And
oh my goodness, yeah.
Because here is, even if it's, at the moment it's not actually really warm yet. We'll get extremely warm soon, but the sun is practically always shining in Cairo, in Egypt. And people go, oh, Egyptians go, I love the rain. And I said, you wouldn't love it if it was raining day in, day out for weeks. But they don't grasp it. So, and the climate here means that people can be outside a vast majority of the time, which means people mix more. So this is where it's so different.
But it's so true. If you think of the Mediterranean countries and like Italians as opposed to Swedes and there's a reason so many
it's all about climate.
Northerners move to other climates. And the amount of time I talk to my in-laws in the UK and my family in Germany, and it's winter and they've had months of, they're depressed. They're seriously depressed. And
I know.
And we are, obviously where we are, it's usually sunny, although it wasn't just a few weeks ago. But
yes, I saw that on your podcast.
It's sunny, and we don't then tend to be outside all the time because it's always sunny. And I remember my parents visiting us in California for the first time, and they were just constantly outside, and they were like, why are your children inside? They need to be outside. It's sunny. And I'm like, yeah, but it's always sunny. I'm quite glad that they don't go outside all the time because, get sunburn.
Yes.
But it's
exactly.
There's definitely the mentality of people is so heavily influenced. So I take it that the climate suits you where you are.
The winter climate suits me. The summer climate is horrendous for me here. I really struggle to cope with it. And it's just simply too hot for me. And I spend all the time in air conditioning.
Yeah.
But that's just the way that it is. It's like the opposite of Scotland. In the summer in Scotland, you spend as much time as possible outdoors. And here you just don't, because it's too hot.
It's similar here. Yeah.
Was it last year? No, it was the year before last, I think. I can't remember now. But it was a horrendous summer, and Ramadan was right it was like 45 degrees in Ramadan. And one of my husband's daughter, she's a very slim girl, and she basically collapsed because she was fasting, and it was 45 degrees. And you just think, oh, it's horrendous.
That is horrendous.
Yeah.
So is there anything that your husband, even though he hasn't been to the UK, but that you kind of feel like he's he's changed in some ways because of you?
Oh yes, he has, and he would. Well, I was mentioning this to him earlier, and he would admit it too, that in certain things Egypt is a conservative and very patriarchal country. There is no, for a Middle Eastern country, it's not too bad, but in comparison to Western Europe, it very much is. And he has definitely become more accepting of certain things because he knows me, definitely. But even more so, my husband is my stepson, who is now, he was 18 when we met, 18 or 19 when we met, and he's now obviously in his 20s. And I can see the difference that knowing me has had on him, and it's made him, it's going to sound really bad, for which I apologize to anybody listening, but made him a lot less of an Egyptian man than he could have been. And a lot less of, like, for an early example was, when I get married, I'll let my wife not wear a hijab. And I'm like, let your wife. Okay, let's have a little chat about that. So it's that sort of thing. And he really has. And it's,
so his future partner will thank you.
I hope so. Yes, I hope so. Yes. So, and one of the reasons we've got on so well from the beginning is that he is absolutely fluent in English, and he's gifted with languages, which has really helped us. That's one of the reasons why we're so, but I don't hesitate to tell him when I think he's being any one of a number of things, like sexist, racist, homophobic, any of those things, and he gets challenged on it. And he does, it's the typical thing, I'm not racist, but if you're starting a sentence with I'm not something but, the likelihood is you're about to say something that proves actually, that you might be. Yes. So, but
I guess that's also the beauty of that generation. It's that
it is
more open, and
I agree.
And this is what I love about probably what I love most about relationships and friendships that are cross-cultural, and because both sides benefit so much from learning about the other, and it's just
they do,
whether it's just in a relationship or whether then children are involved and how they perceive everything and how they then with their background influence their friends, and it's just like this knock-on effect. And I love that because it kind of,
it is,
on the whole,
absolutely.
I just feel it's what we need, what the world needs is that more understanding.
I couldn't agree more.
So it's like you're right there at the basic level. That's fantastic.
And Egyptians, I think there are only 4 or 5 countries in the world that Egyptians are allowed to go to where it's visa on entry, and it's very hard to get a visa for most other countries. So the vast majority of what most Egyptians say about life outside Egypt is from the media, which of course is generally completely one-sided and skewed and not accurate.
Don't we all know that?
Yes, not just for Egypt, for everywhere. But the problem for Egyptians is that they rarely get the opportunity. And Egypt has a very, very young population as well, which is
that's exciting.
The problem is, well, so I'm going to go off on one of my hobby horses here. When I was working in the education sector, and Egypt, they had a revolution, as you probably know, in 2011. Oh gosh, yes, it's 10 years since the revolution. And the previous the president that was ousted was basically bleeding the country dry, and as a result, all education, health, and whatnot had no investment for years, and the education sector had no investment for 50 years, and it's all what we used to do in Britain in the 50s. It's learning by rote. The disservice to the children of people of Egypt was
that's so sad.
Horrendous. So, but you can see it. Like my stepson, their critical thinking skills are just not as developed, which again is probably where I say this sounds really pompous, but I probably have helped him because I've got very well developed critical thinking skills.
Well, that's what I meant. Like you were right at the fundamental level where you are. You can
less so these days, but in the beginning, I used to say things, and I'd say, I'd look at him and I think, have you thought that through? Have you really thought through that? And he said, oh yeah, that was a bit stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah,
That's
it's
good.
yes. Well, I think so. Yes, that's my opinion on the matter. Yes.
So, completely changing the subject, but I'm going to ask before I forget. Do you have any funny or embarrassing stories about your early days in Egypt?
Oh, many. So the funniest stories for most foreigners in Egypt actually tend to involve going to, for example, renew your visa, or what my husband calls an adventure day in a government department. Yes.
I like his sense of humor
Yes,
already.
because I said to him the last time we went, I said, "How long is this going to take?" And he said, who knows? Yeah, it's an adventure day in a government department. So, and there was one in particular where God knows what I was thinking, where I went on my own to try and renew my visa, it was just. I gave up eventually. It was just hell, and everybody was yelling, and there were thousands of people, and there was that. But there's other really silly small cultural things. Like my husband told me, I've been here like over 5 years, and my husband told me that it's rude to blow your nose while you're having a conversation with somebody. And I said, and you're telling me this now? Like, I've been here 5 years. And then you're thinking back to all the times when you blew your nose when you were talking to somebody, thinking, oh my God, I must have offended so many people.
But then it's those things that you don't necessarily think that your partner might do things differently, and they only kind of creep up on you after a while, and you think whether it's table manners or anything, there's so many situations where you're like, oh, I never noticed that I
didn't know that. And I think that it's really small things that you don't realize that other countries do it differently.
Yes.
Think, oh gosh,
and sometimes
how that works here.
It takes years to realize because they're so small. And I mean, is there anything that you wish you'd known right from the bat when you first got together?
Well, I wish I had known how hard it was going to be to adapt to a new culture and have a new relationship at the same time. Because it was hell, actually. And I look back to the first year we were together, and I'm still actually amazed that we made it. So if anybody's listening to this and thinking, well, I'm not going to do it then, it'll be too hard. It is worth persevering, because it does get better. You do get more used to, obviously, the culture. You do fit in. You stop, as you know, that phase where you're thinking, I don't know how to do anything. You gradually learn how to do stuff, and you get to know your partner, because with the best will in the world, we'd never lived together until I moved to Egypt. So there was a whole phase of getting to know each other, and which is just
you must have been in constant
overwhelm. It was terrible. It really was. I was exhausted the whole time, and we argued for the first 12 months.
Yeah,
we argued constantly.
Yeah.
And it was, but we did. But I think there was something. We both knew there was something underlying there for us that made it worth persevering.
And also, I guess, I mean, your willingness to come and live in his country and go through all this, there must have been some kind of appreciation. He maybe still probably doesn't realize what it really means for you and what it meant to you.
No, he didn't, and he never will. In fact, my sister said that to him one time. You will, even if you spend some time in Britain, you will never appreciate what it was like for Carol moving to Egypt. But we had one major defining moment after which things actually, and I think it was I'd been there almost a year, and there had been some summer ball or something, and I'd stayed overnight at a friend's house, and he'd forgotten about the ball. And he couldn't contact me the next day. I can't remember. I was probably slept late for obvious reasons. And he said to me, I got back home, and he said, you know, you need to get permission from your husband to stay away from your house overnight. And I said, pardon? And he said, it's the law. And it actually is the law, would you believe? And we started a big argument, predictably. And I said, I am never going to ask you permission to do anything ever. You need to get that straight. And then he said something about, you need to decide if you want to be in a relationship with an Egyptian. And I said, okay, let's be clear here. I gave up everything. Yeah, I don't need to prove anything. I've proved it. I moved to Egypt to be with you. I gave up, my entire life to be with you. So I've proved myself. So you're the one that needs to prove it, that you want to be married to a British person. And that's what this means. Like, for number one, I will never ask you for permission, and so on.
Yeah, I love it.
And I'm not joking. From that point on, it was really notable that things started to improve.
Yeah.
And I think if I was to give any advice, that would be number one, is to decide on the things that you will simply not compromise on and stick to it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because that's what I did. I will not ever do this, and so on. And I will not wear a hijab. I will never ever ask you for permission to do anything ever. We are a partnership. That's what marriage is in Britain. You are a partnership. You work together and whatnot. And yeah, it was.
So do you work together? Because I mean, this is the other thing. So
we do. Yes.
Very often, people moving countries, and then obviously your job situation changed completely.
Yes.
So what is it you do now?
So I work, as I said earlier, I worked in education. Really not long after I moved here. I moved company, but right until April last year. And the job didn't end because of the virus, but in fact, we couldn't have done it because of the virus. So with hindsight, it was always going to end. And I had this dream. I've had this dream since I was a child of, because I love Agatha Christie and I love Egypt. So I said to Ataf ages ago, I want to do these tours. He owns a tour company. I want to do these tours with Agatha Christie and Death on the Nile, and people can go and visit the places where they go in Death on the Nile. And he'd never heard of that. And he's like, and I said, Agatha Christie is the best-selling author of fiction globally. And he's like, I don't know who Agatha Christie is. And she's written this iconic book set in Egypt. And he said, well,
people will come.
But he said, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, he said, brilliant. Well, yeah, we could do it. Yeah, no problem. So it took 3 years from the first idea. So that's what, and I'm also helping him with his main tour site, and also he has a budget sort of hotel, which I help him with too. But also the key factor was that I hit my 55th birthday in June, which meant I was able to access some of my pension, which is what gave us the funds to be able to do this.
What is it called?
It's called Literary Tours in Egypt. So, which is, I'm hopefully I did launch it the worst possible time in recent history, but I'm hoping that people will be desperate to go on holiday.
I think people are now really planning. From what I hear, it's the whole, vaccinations are being rolled out, and I feel like people are really making big plans. And because they haven't traveled so much, I think people are so desperate for spending their time in a worthwhile way. So I'll definitely link to that in the show notes, because
it
sounds fascinating.
I worked with a marketing agency because it's such a sort of niche. Yeah. And they said, and you need to do this, and you need to come up with your ideal customer. And I said, well, I'm my ideal customer.
Perfect.
So people like me.
But that's what they say, isn't it? Make something that you'd love, and then it's going to be sounds.
And Ataf he's watched the film now, Death on the Nile. He's not read the book, but he has watched the film, and he said, "Oh yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, to do that."
Absolutely, and this is such a market for it.
Yes.
I've got one last question to wrap up our conversation.
Okay.
And so I asked you how much he's changed, but if I asked him now, what would he say is the most Egyptian thing about you? How have you changed?
So another difference between my culture and his culture, and this is even more true for you because you're German actually, is time. And Egyptians are very, very, very relaxed about time. Very relaxed about time. And he thinks I have become much more Egyptian, and I'm much more laid back about time. I don't personally think I am, but maybe I have become, because everything happens slower in Egypt, and they have the, and he said, and I know this because you've started to use, so the word for tomorrow in Egypt, in Arabic is bukra, in Egyptian Arabic anyway, is bukra. Now bukra doesn't actually mean tomorrow. That's just literal.
Just in the
what
future.
It means is not now, just not now.
Oh, I love it.
And he said, and you've started to use bukra, and you mean it truly. You mean not now.
Yeah.
So when are you going to do this bukra?
Very nice.
Not now then.
Very good.
No, not now.
Well, thank you so much, Carol, again for taking the time. This was very interesting.
My pleasure. I'm very honored.
It's one of my absolute favorite subjects. You know, how people meet and make it work, and it sounds like you're making it work. And
so far,
so good luck with your business, and
thank you.
More Arabic, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that was my chat with Carol. What a story! I'm still blown away by it. What a brave woman. And I just loved how she describes it so matter-of-factly, and the fact that she's really maintaining her own principles and bringing that into the relationship. And well, it does sound like a movie script, doesn't it? Anyway, make sure you check out Carol's website, literarytoursegypt.com. I just had a peek and it looks absolutely amazing. It's not just Agatha Christie, it's other authors too. And yeah, it sounds really fun. So if you would like to be part of this season, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, or if you know someone who'd be a good candidate, or maybe even a couple. Now that would be fun. I'd love to have a couple on the show. Then we could get both sides at the same time. That could be so much fun. Anyway, you know where to find me. Come to my Facebook page, Transcontinental Overload, or my website. And of course, I am Overloaded Steph on Twitter and on Instagram. Yeah, I always love meeting new people and hearing good stories. So that's it from me for today. I can't wait to bring you the next episode. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay positive. Spring is in the air, or at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So see you next time.